Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. I am Olakunle Kasumo. Last week we showed the concluding part of a conversation between Professor Wole Soyinka and Oke Ndibe. In that episode, we announced we will be giving out 5 copies of this book titled The Man Leaves. The book is authored by Oke Ndibe and is based on that fascinating dialogue he had with Professor Wole Soyinka. Well, we decided to increase the number of giveaway copies to 15. To be one of the recipients, you only needed to answer a question correctly and on time. Well, 2 questions in one in reality. The quiz made it easy for us to determine our brain teaser for today, and we will get started with it before returning to the quiz results for last week. So, here's the teaser. What is a novel? A novel is a relatively long work of narrative fiction, normally written in prose form, and which is typically published as a book. It is an extended fictional work in prose, usually in the form of a story based on imagination and not necessarily on fact. Typically, there are different types of novels: romance novels, thriller novels, drama, horror, action, and so on. Someone who writes a novel is called a novelist. Personally, I love thrilling and captivating novels, and I read them whenever I can, especially when I want to get away from being all serious and melancholic. So back to last week, the quiz question and winners. The question we asked was, how many novels has Wole Soyinka written and what are their titles? How many novels has Wole Soyinka written and what are their titles? We emphasized novels and not plays, dramas, essays, or poems. Many people responded by sending us their answers. It was really interesting reading the responses. The answers to the 2-in-1 question are: Wole Soyinka has written 2 novels, and their titles are The Interpreters and Season of Anomy. I can imagine somebody out there screaming, just 2 novels? Well, just 2 novels. The Interpreters was first published in London in 1965 and later republished as part of the influential African Writers series. It was written in English and later translated into a number of languages. The novel is set in the 1960s in post-independence and pre-Civil War Nigeria, mainly in Lagos. It weaves its plot around 5 main characters who were friends at high school, later went abroad to study, and returned to start middle-class jobs in Nigeria. Season of Anomy. This is Wole Soyinka's second novel. It was published in 1973. In some ways, it is a story of a country fractured by chaotic revolutionary violence. It's a novel that showcases Soyinka's understanding of human nature and man's role in the world. Corruption, greed, and dreaded vices of human nature are encapsulated in a soulless company described in the novel. But ultimately, it is a novel in which the human spirit prevails. So Wole Soyinka is primarily a playwright rather than a novelist. He is not known for writing novels like Chinua Achebe was. A playwright is simply someone who writes plays. And one of the most famous playwrights in history is William Shakespeare. I'm sure you've heard of that name a lot. William Shakespeare. People tend to mix things up a bit. Someone responded to our announcement on social media by asking, what about Death and the King's Horseman? Well, Death and the King's Horseman, written by Professor Wole Soyinka, is a play, not a novel. Many people, when they hear writer, often think of novelists like Chimamanda Adichie or Chinua Achebe or Jeffrey Archer. We have to think beyond novelists when we are considering writers. Perhaps the greatest writer in the English language is the man I mentioned earlier on, William Shakespeare. Yet, he was primarily a playwright, a writer of plays. He never wrote a novel. Well, one might argue that there were no novels back then, but I'm sure you get the point. From the responses to our quiz question, we thought people seem to mix up genres. Novels are not the same as plays, memoirs, or essays. They're all different. Let's take a few typical responses to the question which came through Twitter as examples, maybe perhaps to further illustrate what I'm talking about. A gentleman called Chris wrote, Professor Wole Soyinka has written 30 books. Kongi's Harvest, A Dance of the Forests, Death and the King's Horseman, The Lion and the Jewel, Mad Men and Specialists, The Strong Breed, A Play of Giants, The Interpreters, Ake, The Trial of Brother Jero, The Man Died, Season of Anomy, You Must Set Forth at Dawn, Ishara, The Road, Ibadan, Climate of Fear, In the Forest of Olodumare, Harmattan Haze on an African Spring, Alakpata Akpata. These are all books by Wole Soyinka, but only The Interpreters and Season of Anomy are novels. Kongi's Harvest is a 1965 play that premiered in Dakar, Senegal, at the first Negro Arts Festival in April 1966. It was later adapted as a film of the same name, directed by the American O.C. Davis. A Dance of the Forest is one of the most recognized of Wole Soyinka's plays. The play was presented at the Nigerian independence celebrations in 1960. Death and the King's Horseman is a play based on a real incident that took place in Nigeria during British colonial rule. The Lion and the Jewel is a 3-act play that fuses modern and traditional elements of storytelling, including Yoruba song and dance, to convey serious messages. It was first performed in 1959. Ake is a childhood memoir which provides the story of Soyinka's boyhood days before and during World War II in a Yoruba village in western Nigeria called Ake. You Must Set Forth at Dawn is Wole Soyinka's memoir which narrates his very fascinating and dramatic experiences that span across art, literature, politics, and activism. Soyinka masterfully uses his life as a running commentary for the state of political affairs in Nigeria since 1960. Ibadan is another memoir on the list of Chris. Mad Men and Specialists, The Strong Breed, A Play of Giants, The Trial of Brother Jero, and The Road are all plays. Another contributor wrote the following. The Forest of a Thousand Demons, In the Forest of Olodumare, Blues for a Prodigal, Kongi's Harvest, The Burden of Memory, Egbe's Sworn Enemy. In all, Wole Soyinka has written 67 works. Well, he obviously counted the other books written by Professor Wole Soyinka apart from the novels. But kudos to him and all the other contributors who gave the quiz a shot. Thank you for participating. We appreciate you. But who were the winners? Their answers were submitted through Twitter, and here are their Twitter handles. Congratulations to all the winners. We have contacted them privately and communicated how they will get their copies of The Man Lives. It's really a good book to have if you are keen on understanding Professor Wole Soyinka's views on many contemporary Nigerian issues better, and also taking a kind of a journey into aspects of Nigerian history. It's really a loaded book. Coming up next is a chat with one of those Nigerians I like to describe as heroes. While most of us are preoccupied with other aspects of our national life, Taiwo Akinlami and his likes have dedicated themselves to educating and inspiring Nigerian children. Akinlami is a social development and public interest lawyer. He is a child development subject matter expert. For over 20 years, his involvement in both local and international child development initiatives and projects have impacted the lives of thousands of Nigerian children. Akinlami is the author of children's books and comics, including Safe for You. He joins us to discuss the education of today's child, his works and writing, and all things related. Enjoy this. Taiwo, nice to have you on Channels Book Club.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to flatter you, but I'm really impressed by what you're doing. For me, Nigeria needs people like you. We celebrate politicians, we celebrate sportsmen, musicians, and all that, but people who do the kind of work you do with young people, under the radar, mentoring them, trying to impart the right values in them, giving your all into doing such things. I think it's very impressive. So well done.
Thank you so much for your commendations.
Well done. Well done. I've seen a few people like you. Every time I get the opportunity to engage people like yourself, I feel very happy that Nigeria has such people involved in such projects.
Thank you so much.
And I hope the country will begin to focus more, because the future of the country lies in the young generation.
Very correct.
Yeah. So talk to me a bit about some of the other things, some of the things you do. You've got this Facebook thing going on.
Yes.
I think you call it something Parliament.
Yes.
You've got a book club going on Facebook.
Yes.
Share a few things with us.
Well, our interest is that primarily the responsibility of protecting children lies in the hands of the parents. But children will not always be with their parents. Children need to be educated on how to protect themselves. We call it personal safety and self-protection. The same way we send them to school to learn hard skills, we believe these are soft skills that children need to be exposed to. How do you protect yourself against physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect? A lot of people believe in what they call self-defense, but we believe that self-defense is inferior to self-protection. Self-protection is a function of value system you inculcate in children to understand that they need to respect themselves and take responsibility for their safety as at when it is necessary. And this will need preparation. Rules and regulations that parents have put in place. But, in this country, we are interested more in rules and regulations. But many years ago, rules and regulations have failed, because if you cannot explain the value behind the rules and regulations, children are not going to respect it. If you say greet, for example, you tell a child to greet. Now, the way we tell children to greet is as if there's something in it for the adults when the child greets. But if you explain to the child that when you greet, it's an exhibition of positive value system, and when you greet, when you exhibit positive value system, you get favor from people. People just want to be nice to you, kind to you. Now, children begin to see it from another perspective. We also believe that beyond that, after understanding that we need to communicate value, we can't be communicating it the hard way we communicate it. Sit down there, stand up, I've told you not to do this and all of that. We believe that we can bring entertainment into it. We can bring edutainment into it. And so we feel that we can engage children by getting what interests them. Now, those who want to mess up the life of children, meet them at the point of entertainment. When it is Valentine's Day, what do? We invite people to come and speak a lot of English to young people, load them with a lot of rules and regulation. They are so burdened, they don't even know where to start from. Then once we leave, on that same Valentine's Day, somebody has spoken for two hours, tormenting the children with a lot of words. And children are wondering that where do I start from? Maths class has tormented me. English class has tormented me. Geography class has tormented me. These people have come again. Then when you bring little music, and children begin to dance and they forget everything you have said. And those who bring this music most of them don't bring value, because for music to be sensible in Nigeria now, it does not make sense. So we feel that we can bridge that gap. We can begin to communicate with children in the language they understand. You know, in those days there were folklores. Our parents, there used to be tales by moonlight, communicating positive value system to children. They are learning, they are not even aware that they are learning. So we feel that children learn best when they are not even aware that they are learning. So we started creating a lot of materials for children, for parents. How do you broach conversation? How do you do all of these things? Then we started creating comics. Then
I want to. I'm sorry to cut in, Taiwo. I'm going to come back to those things. You sound like we are not getting it right when it comes to young people these days.
A lot of times.
You sound like that. Your writings, I pick that a lot from your writings. We are not getting it right in parenting, in the way we are trying to teach them and prepare them for the future. You sound like we are completely lost as far as that is concerned.
Yes, because you see, one thing that today's children don't have is attention. You know, the things competing for their attention is so massive. You know, when I was growing up, what was competing for my attention was just radio and TV. And TV would not start until 4 o'clock. And my father had a TV, and the TV had a lock. His radiogram had a lock. So you couldn't get access to all of these things, and they were limited. What were the things that we were seeing then? They were limited things that we were seeing. Now things have changed completely. Every information that you don't want your child to see is just a button away, and that is very, very tempting.
Scary.
That is scary. So we have to be able to also meet them at that level. When they go online, what kind of content? People criticize online presence for visitation when children use online platforms. I say no. Just make sure that your children follow the age appropriateness rules. Facebook says you can't come until you are 13. Let them go when they are 13, but prepare them for the place. WhatsApp says you can't come until you are 16. Prepare them for that time before they go there. But most importantly, when they go there, it boils down to 3 things. Contact. Once you make contact, you are going to contact content. Once you contact content, it's going to lead to character. It's going to lead to character. So it's from contact to content, then character. So we say children is about what you see regularly or what you hear regularly is going to determine what you think. What you think is going to determine what you believe. What you believe is intangible. It's going to show you your habits. Your habit will choose your friends for you. Your friends will choose your opportunities. Your opportunities will choose your reward. Now, I'm here because of relationship, you know. So that's how these things work.
Okay, so the mindset of today's child is completely different from the mindset of yesterday's child.
I agree with you completely by principle of socialization.
So, therefore, if we continue to use the strategies that worked with yesterday's child on today's child, we mess up everything.
It's going to fail completely.
That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to fail completely because one thing, culture, somebody says culture is what dominant value system of a people at a time. Culture do evolve. You know, there was a way we spoke to yesterday's child. We can't speak to today's child like that. You know, what today's child do not have is attention. Distraction is one of the biggest temptations of today's child. Distraction, I mean, you know, when you look at children, you are talking to them, 10 million things are playing in their heads. You know, they are looking at, what can I do next? They want you to get over this conversation, but you're not getting it because when your parents spoke to you, you stood for hours. So you're also saying, my friend, I'm talking to you. Why are you looking another way? What else are you doing? And the child is not getting it. And if we don't come to their level, come from Mount Olympus, like Chinua Achebe quoted W. Yeats in his book, Things Fall Apart and the Strength Cannot Hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Now, it's not that the falconer is not speaking. The falconer is speaking, but it's not speaking the language of the falcon. So the falconer has lost the falcon. And things fall apart and the strength cannot hold. The major problem we have today with our children is the problem of communication. How do we communicate with our children in a way that the communication is meaningful, the communication is healthy, the communication is supportive, helpful, the communication is empathetic, and the communication is inspirational? These are the things we consider in our communication with children. Between now, when COVID started and now, As of today, we have hosted over 1,000 children. Yesterday, we hosted like over 200 children yesterday. Online, having conversations with them. Every Wednesday, we read to children. We get guests. We get people who are respected in society, whose values, who are role model to children. We get them to come on our platform on Wednesday. We bring people to read to children for less than 15 minutes or thereabout.
What inspires you? There's so much energy here.
Yes.
You've written, okay, this is your book, which we'll come back to.
Yes.
Safe. There are 4 volumes of this.
Yes, Safe for you.
You have a Safe comic.
Yes, a view comic. Yeah.
You produced quite a number of editions.
Yes.
So you've got the comic going on.
Yes.
You've got your books going on.
Yes.
You've got the book club going on.
Yes.
You've got the parliament.
Yes, family parliament.
Thing going on.
Yes.
Man, how do you, what inspires you?
Well, my inspiration comes from my childhood experience. I had a very nasty childhood experience. I did not have easy growing up. Easy growing up. My parents were good people, wonderful people. Unfortunately, they did not know what to do with children. They did not know how to train children because they also must have been responding to their own childhood. So I have lost my virginity at the age of 6. That year I started primary school.
I read that.
When my father wanted to
Did you
take
say
me
6?
6 years old. If
you were
childhood,
abused at 6.
I was sexually molested at 6, and that continued for like it was serial abuse, because there's a particular woman that my mother kept me with when we returned from school, and this woman would strip me naked, do with a 6-year-old boy what a woman should do with a man, and she did that consistently for like 2 years before we moved out of that particular place, and we moved to another place. I was at her mercy. Unfortunately, my parents did not speak to me about my sexuality. They did not speak to me about the fact that we could speak on. My father died at the age of 82 in 1918. In 2009, I was 39 years old. We never had a conversation. He never instructed me on any issues of life. I saw that conversation that parents must have with children was a missing point in my upbringing. That's why I suffered sexual abuse. I suffered physical abuse. I suffered emotional abuse. At age 6, my teacher had looked at me. At age 9, my teacher had looked at me in primary school because I was playing with a friend that we were climbing a tree. This game we normally play, tree climbing. And the thing went wrong, and the plant on which Dada was standing broke, and it went straight into his tummy, and Dada was rushed to the hospital. 2 days after, news came to school that Dada had died. Dada had died. My teacher looked at me at age 9, age 10, primary 3, and said, "This boy, Taiwo Akinlami from today, call him devil, is Satan." And from that age on, when a teacher gives you a nickname, when somebody gives you a nickname you don't like in school, you go to your teacher. When your teacher is the one who sits in judgment to give you that name, what do? You become a victim to the teacher and to the students who make jest of you. And making jest of people, teasing other children is the pastime of children. We enjoyed it. And so I went through all of that, and I found that one thing that is missing, communication. Conversation with children. So it's very key. It's the type of conversation we do not think that, you see, there's a lot of mistake we make. Children are persons. They are not going to be persons when they become 18. They are already persons. And a person has 3 characteristics. A person has words. 2, a person is a thinker. A person can think. 3, a person has the power of choice. If you don't communicate with these 3, when children are growing up, then you are going to find out you have raised children who have advanced in age, but they have not in physical age, but they are not advanced in mental age. They're not going to think that they are worth anything. They're not going to think that they can think. They're not going to think that they have the power of choice. And the power of choice must be used in the direction of ability to say no. I tell young people when I speak to them, there are 24 things I wish I had known.
Interesting. Safe. 4 volumes.
Yes.
Tell me about this.
Yes. One of the challenges...
How many tips are here?
125 tips.
Tell me about this.
So we feel that the challenge... So when we talk about conversation, we spoke about contact.
Yeah.
Then content leads to content. The challenge of a lot of parents is that they don't know what to discuss. When I want to discuss sexuality with my child, where do I start from? My parents never discussed it with me. I've not invested in training. So we decided to develop this to help children to broach conversation with their children. So whatever you want to discuss on drug, on sexuality, we give you an idea. It's very short. We divide it to daily affair. So for every conversation you want to start, on sexuality, on drug abuse. No more drug abuse, now it's substance abuse. You can go through with your children, or you can read it as background preparation and now have conversation with your children. Then again, we created it for children also that they can read for themselves and understand what the issues are.
So there are tips per day.
Tips per day, yes.
Every tip
Yes.
per day.
Yes.
Ah, well, Taiwo, we could go on forever on this.
Yes.
It's so exciting speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, but we are out of time now.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on Channels Book Club.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you. I've had a wonderful time.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
I hope you have had a good time with us today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. I'm Olakunle Kasumu. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.